Hi everyone, welcome to Mountain Home Stories. Today I've come up with a book of illustrated classics and it is the abridged form. There are many stories, actually there are 8 stories in here. They are Black Beauty, David Copperfield, Gulliver's Travels, Huckleberry Finn, Kidnapped, Tom Sawyer, Treasure Island, Oliver Twist. So the first story that we are going to start off will be with Black Beauty, followed by David Copperfield. I hope you are going to enjoy reading the stories with me. And a gentle reminder, if you are new to my channel, please do consider subscribing to it. And now, without wasting any further time, let's start off with Illustrated Classics, Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. Read along with me. The first place that I can well remember was a large, pleasant meadow. A stream ran along the bottom of it. There were 6 young colts in the meadow besides me. I used to have great fun galloping with them. One day, my mother said to me, "Pay attention to what I am going to say. I hope you will grow up gentle and never learn bad ways. Do your work with a good will and never bite or kick, even in play." I have never forgotten my mother's advice. I knew she was a wise old horse, and our master thought a great deal of her. Her name was Duchess, but he often called her Pet. Our master was a kind man. He gave us good food and good lodging and spoke gently to us. We were all fond of him. I was a black horse, so he called me Darky. All the horses would come to him, but I think we were his favorites. One morning we saw a group of huntsmen and their dogs chasing a hare. The hare rushed by us, wild with fright, but soon the dogs fell upon her and tore her to pieces. While chasing the hare, 2 fine horses fell and were badly injured. One of the riders was groaning in pain, the other was dead. I learned later that the rider who died was Squire Gordon's only son. The farrier came and examined the horse whose leg was broken. He shook his head. Then someone brought a gun. There was a loud bang and a shriek, and the horse moved no more. Squire Gordon's son was buried in the churchyard. What they did with the other horse, I never knew. But it was all for one little hare. I was now growing up. My coat had grown fine and soft and was bright black. I had one white foot and a pretty white star on my forehead. My master said it was time to break me in, and he would do so himself. Breaking in means to teach a horse to wear a saddle and a bridle and to carry safely on his back a man, woman, or child. He must never start at what he sees, nor bite or kick, but always do his master's will, even though he may be very tired. The next day my master gave me some oats as usual and then put a saddle gently on my back. He got the bit into my mouth and fixed the bridle, but it was a nasty thing. No one can imagine how bad it feels. A piece of cold, hard steel pushed into one's mouth. I hated it, but I knew my mother always wore one when she went out, and all horses did when they were grown up. Then my master got on my back and rode me round the meadow on the soft grass. It felt queer, but I also felt proud to carry my master. I soon became used to it. When I was 4 years old, I was sold to Squire Gordon. My master patted me kindly before I was taken away. The stable into which the groom put me was very pleasant and airy. In the stall next to mine stood a little fat grey pony. I put my head up to the iron rails at the top of my box and said, "Hello, what is your name?" He turned round and said, "My name is Merrylegs." Just then a tall chestnut mare with a long handsome neck said, "So it is you who have turned me out of my box." "I beg your pardon," I said. "The man who brought me put me here, and I had nothing to do with it." Later, when this mare went out, Merrylegs told me her name was Ginger and that she had a bad habit of biting and snapping. The next day, John Manley, the coachman, took me to my master and mistress. They decided to name me Black Beauty. I was quite happy at my new place. One day, Ginger told me all about the unkindness she had experienced in the past. "No one was ever kind to me," said Ginger. While breaking me in, I was dragged by my halter and flogged from behind. My master, Mr. Ryder, had a son named Samson, who was a harsh man. Whenever I was ill-treated, I kicked and snapped, so I was sold again and again. At last I came here. By now, I had made up my mind that men were my natural enemies. Of course, it is different here. The people treat me well, so I am not irritable anymore. I was sorry for Ginger, but as time went by, she lost all her defiance and became more gentle and cheerful. One day, my master and John had to go on a business trip. It had been raining and strong winds were blowing. However, we made it safely to town. On the way back, an oak tree fell right across the road just before us. I was frightened and stopped still. "That was close," said my master. "What's to be done now?" "So we can't drive over the tree or around it, so we'll have to go back at least 6 miles and cross over the wooden bridge," said John. So back we went, and by the time we got to the bridge, it was nearly dark. We were going at a good pace, but the moment my feet touched the first part of the bridge, I felt there was something wrong. I dared not go forward, so I stopped. "Go on, Beauty," said my master, giving me a sharp cut. But I dared not move. "There's something wrong," said John. Just then a man on the other side ran out and called to us. "Hoy, hoy, hello, stop!" he cried. "What's the matter?" shouted my master. "The bridge is broken in the middle, and part of it has been carried away. If you come on, you will fall into the river." My master and John sighed with relief. John took my bridle and gently turned me to the other road by the riverside. For a long time, no one spoke. Then my master said, "God has given animals knowledge, which does not depend on reason, but by which they often save the lives of men." One day my master came into the stable and said to John, "My brother-in-law wants a trustworthy young groom. I wish to send James, so you must train him to drive the carriage." Some days later, my master and mistress decided to pay a visit to some friends. Ginger and I were harnessed, and James drove us. We stopped over at a big hotel for the night. 2 ostlers came to take us to the stable. We were rubbed down, cleaned, and then given some corn. Later in the evening, a young man with a pipe in his mouth strolled into the stable to gossip with one of the ostler. "I say, Towler," said the ostler, "go up to the loft and put some hay down into this horse's rack, will you? Only first remove your pipe." "All right," said the other, and went up through the trapdoor. After putting the hay down, they locked the stable doors and went off. I cannot say how long I had slept, but I woke up feeling very uncomfortable. I heard Ginger coughing and the other horses moving restlessly. The stable was soon full of smoke. It seemed to be coming from the trapdoor. Then I heard a cry of fire outside, and the ostler rushed in. He took one horse out and came back for another. I heard James's voice coaxing me outside. He took a scarf and tied it gently over my eyes and led me out. James went back again to get Ginger. The horses who were trapped inside were shrieking. Soon the fire engine arrived. I learned later that Towler had forgotten his pipe inside, and that had caused the fire. We were happy to return home to Britwick Park. Before James left us for the night, he said to John, "I wonder who is coming in my place." "Little Joe Green," replied John. The next day, Joe came to the stables to learn how to sweep the stable, bring in the straw and hay, clean the harness, and wash the carriage. At last the day of James' departure came. He looked sad. Everyone was sorry to lose James. One night, I was suddenly woken by the stable bell ringing loudly. I heard John saying, "Wake up, Beauty, the mistress is ill and we must rush to the doctor." I galloped as fast as I could to the doctor's house. "My son has taken my horse," said Dr. White. "Can I take yours?" "He's tired, but I don't think my master will object," replied John. When I returned, I was exhausted. John had to walk home from the doctor's. As soon as he saw my condition, he quickly covered me with 2 warm clothes and gave me some hot gruel. Later, my master came in and said, "Beauty, you saved your mistress's life." I was glad to hear that, but I was now very ill and my lungs had become inflamed. John nursed me day and night till I recovered. I had now lived in this place for 3 years. Then our mistress fell ill and was advised by the doctor to go to a warm country for a few years. My master decided to sell Ginger and me to his old friend, an earl. The evening before they left, my master came to the stables to give the horses a last pat. He was very sad. The next morning, Ginger and I were taken by John to Earlshall Park, where the earl lived. We were put in an airy stable in adjoining boxes, where we were cleaned and fed. Our new master was kind, but our mistress treated us dreadfully. Early in the spring, our master and his family went up to London. Reuben Smith, the head groom, was left in charge of the stables. One day in April, Smith and I had to go to town to run an errand. On the way back, the roads were stony and we were galloping fast. A nail in my shoe was loose and my shoe finally came off. Smith was too drunk to notice that something was wrong. My shoeless foot hurt. The pain was too much and I stumbled, while Smith was thrown off. As a result of the fall, my knees were badly injured. When the master returned and saw my condition, he decided sadly to sell me. My new master's name was Jerry. He had a cab of his own and 2 horses, which he drove and attended to himself. He was kind and thoughtful. He kept us clean, gave us fresh food, and even let us rest on Sundays. One day a shabby old cab drove up near us. The horse was old and worn out, but she looked hard at me and then said, "Black Beauty, is that you?" It was Ginger. But how she had changed! Her legs were swollen, her joints had grown out of shape, and her face was full of suffering. Ginger said she had been sold several times till she was brought by her present owner. He would often whip and overwork her. Before we could talk any more, her driver pulled at the reins and drove her away. One afternoon, I heard that Jerry had found a job as a coachman and he and his family would soon move to the countryside. It was sad news for me, as I would be sold once more. My new master, Nicholas Skinner, was cruel to the drivers and the drivers were hard on the horses. My life here was wretched. One day, I had been working since 8 in the morning when a party hired me to take them to the railway station. As we went up a hill, I bore the pain of being whipped repeatedly. Suddenly, I fell heavily to the ground. When I had recovered, I was led back to Skinner's stables. The doctor who examined me advised a 6-month rest. "Then he must go. I have no place to nurse a sick horse," said Skinner. I was taken to be sold at a place near London. I was bought by a farmer who looked after me and was kind to me. Perfect rest, good food, soft grass, and gentle exercise soon helped me regain my strength. I was sold to a family nearby. The ladies of the house came out to see me. The groom led me to my new stable. The next day, when he was cleaning my face, he said, "That is just like the star that Black Beauty had." He began to look at me carefully, all the while talking to himself. "White star in the forehead and 1 white foot. It must be Black Beauty. Why, Beauty, don't you know me? I'm little Joe Green." Then I realized that I was at the home of the vicar, who was a friend of Squire Gordon. I have now been here for a year. Joe is the best and kindest of all grooms. My work is easy and pleasant. The ladies have promised never to sell me. My troubles are over. I have nothing to fear, and here my story ends. I hope you enjoyed hearing this story. Our next story is going to be the autobiographical novel David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, the illustrated classics in an abridged form. So let's start off. Read along with me. My name is David Copperfield. I was born at Blunderstone in Suffolk. My father had died 6 months before my birth. My first clear memories are of my mother and her pretty hair and youthful looks, and of Peggotty, my nurse, with cheeks like apples. I remember our house with a garden at the back. One evening my mother came home with a gentleman who had dark hair and whiskers. The gentleman patted me on the head. I didn't like him. Over the next few weeks, the gentleman began to visit us quite often. His name was Murdstone. A couple of months later, Peggotty took me to visit her brother at Yarmouth. I was excited about my trip, but I was also sad to leave my mother. I'd never left her before. At Yarmouth, Peggotty's nephew Ham showed me their house. It was built on a boat. I was delighted. I spent a wonderful fortnight there with Ham and Emily, who was the niece of Peggotty's brother. Emily and I went to the beach every day. Soon it was time to return home. I was sad to say goodbye to all my new friends. On reaching home, I jumped from the cart, ran to the door and rang the bell. The door was opened by a strange servant. I was surprised. It was then that Peggotty told me that my mother had married Mr. Murdstone. I grew to hate Mr. Murdstone. Had he spoken a kind word to me, I might have felt differently towards him. Shortly after, Mr. Murdstone's sister came to stay with us. She was a stern, hard kind of woman. My mother was afraid of her. She soon made herself the mistress of the house. Both she and her brother hated me. I had been good at studies before my mother remarried, but my lessons became a daily misery. When Mr. Murdstone and his sister looked at me, I forgot everything. Mr. Murdstone would take the book and hit me hard on the head. One day, when I could not say my lessons, Mr. Murdstone hit me heavily. The same instant, I caught his hand and bit it. Then he bit me as if he meant to beat me to death. I screamed and screamed. Then he threw me to the floor and went out, locking the door. I lay fevered and hot and torn upon the floor. I was a prisoner for the next 5 days. On the last night of my imprisonment, Peggotty whispered through the keyhole that I was being sent to school near London. The next morning, Mr. Barkis, the carrier, was at the door. I saw my mother's pale face and red eyes. I ran to her and begged her pardon. "I forgive you, my dear boy," said my mother, taking me in her arms. "God bless you." On the way, Peggotty climbed into the cart. She kissed me and gave me some cakes and a purse. It had 3 shillings from Peggotty and 2 half-crowns wrapped in a note from my mother. When I reached the school, Mr. Mill, one of the schoolmasters, told me that I had been sent to school during holiday time as a punishment for what I had done. Mr. Mill left me in the schoolroom. There I found a large placard on which was written, "Beware of him, he bites." I got up on the desk immediately. At that moment, Mr. Mill returned and asked me what I was doing up there. "Looking for the dog that bites." "The placard is for you. I've been ordered to put it on your back. I'm sorry to do it, but I must," he said. With that, Mr. Mill pinned the placard on my back. What I suffered from it, nobody can imagine. On the first day of school, the headmaster, Mr. Creakle, came to where I sat and said, "You are famous for biting. I am famous for biting too." He then began to beat me with his cane. I was soon in tears. My memories of the rest of the term was not very clear. I remember the cold days, the badly lit schoolroom, the half-cooked food, the torn books, and the tears. Then it was time to return home. It was a strange feeling to be going home. My mother kissed me again and again when she saw me. Just then Peggotty came running in. The next moment I was in her arms and she was laughing and crying over me. I told them about my school, about how cruel Mr. Creakle was, and they pitied me. I also told them about my friends, Steerforth and Traddles. At the end of the holidays, I kissed my mother goodbye and got into the carrier's cart. It was the last time that I saw her alive. I pass over all that happened at school until my 9th birthday came round in March. Mrs. Creakle summoned me. She was holding an open letter in her hand. "Sit down, David. I'm sorry to tell you that your mother is dead," she said in a kind voice. I did nothing but cry. The next afternoon, I left for home. Peggotty tried to comfort me. I listened quietly as she told me how my mother fell ill and knew she would never recover. Mr. Murdstone arranged for me to work in the warehouse of a firm of wine merchants in London. The warehouse was dirty with the smoke and mud of the city. The work was hard and tiring. One day I was sent to meet a stout, bald, middle-aged man in a brown coat. "I have got a letter from Mr. Murdstone, and he desires me to receive you in my house. Mr. Micawber is my name, and my address is Windsor Terrace. I shall be happy to show you the way there this evening," he said. Mr. Micawber's house was large and shabby like himself. I met Mrs. Micawber, a thin and tired-looking lady with many children around her. She welcomed me very politely. I soon found out all about Mr. Micawber's difficulties. He was always in debt, but had 100 plans for making money, none of which were ever successful. A curious friendship sprang up between me and the Micawbers. Sometimes Mrs. Micawber sent me to the pawnbrokers when she badly needed money to buy food for her family. In the end, Mr. Micawber was sent to prison for debt. When he was set free, he went to Plymouth, where he hoped to find work. After the Micawbers had gone, I thought I had lost the only real friends I had in London. I felt lonely and homeless. Then I remembered Mrs. Betsy Trotwood, who was my father's aunt and my only living relation. I decided to go to Dover and look for her. When I reached Dover, I asked the way to my aunt's cottage. My aunt came out into the garden and saw a ragged, dirty boy. "Go away!" she cried. "No boys here." With a great deal of desperation, I said, "If you please, aunt, I'm your nephew, David Copperfield." "Oh, Lord!" said my aunt. Finally recovering herself, she took me inside and asked the maid to fetch Mr. Dick, her cousin. "Mr. Dick, this is David Copperfield," my aunt said. Over dinner, I told my aunt what had happened with my mother and me. My aunt was very kind to me. So was Mr. Dick. A few days later, Mr. Murdstone and his sister came. My aunt had asked them to. I refused to go with them. "Please let me stay with you. Don't send me back there," I cried. Mr. Murdstone stood up and marched to the door. His sister marched after him. "I shall be your guardian from now on," my aunt promised, "and I shall call you Trotwood Copperfield." So with a new name, I began a new life. Mr. Dick and I soon became the best of friends. Very often we used to fly kites. One day my aunt took me to meet her lawyer. The door was opened by a cunning-looking young man. He was Uriah Heep, the lawyer's assistant. "Is Mr. Wickfield at home, Uriah?" asked my aunt. "Yes, he is, madam," said he, pointing towards Mr. Wickfield's room. My aunt introduced me to Mr. Wickfield and said, "I want a school for the boy, a school where he will be taught and treated well." "Dr. Strong's school is the best," Mr. Wickfield told us. "The doctor's house is full now. If you wish, the boy can live here with me and my daughter Agnes." I spent 7 happy years at Dr. Strong's school. After school, I hurried home to Mr. Wickfield every day. Agnes was always there with a happy smile. She helped me with my homework. The only thing that troubled me at that time was Mr. Wickfield. He had started drinking too much wine. He could not manage his business properly and was beginning to depend too much on Uriah Heep. One day, Uriah invited me to his humble home. Both he and his mother asked me many questions about Mr. Wickfield. I told them more than I should have, for which I was sorry afterwards. After I finished school, I decided to become a lawyer. My aunt offered to pay for my training, so I went to London and began working in the office of Messrs. Spenlow and Jorkins. A few months later, I met Agnes in London. She told me that Mr. Wickfield was going to make Uriah Heep his partner. This news worried me. When I visited Agnes the next day, I was delighted to meet Tommy Traddles, my old friend from school. Uriah Heep was also there. After dinner, I invited Uriah to my room for coffee. I looked at his cunning face and evil eyes as he pretended to be sorry for the mess the lawyer had made of his business. I felt like knocking him down when he dared to say that perhaps one day Agnes would become his wife. That night, I could not sleep at all. I lay thinking about poor Agnes. What could I do to help her? I liked my work at Spenlow and Jorkins. One day, I accompanied Mr. Spenlow to his country home, where I met his daughter, Dora. Instantly, I fell in love with her bright eyes and long golden hair. "This is my daughter, Dora," said Mr. Spenlow. "And this is Dora's governess, Miss Jane Murdstone." I could not believe my eyes. Yes, it was the same cold, cruel woman. "Mr. Copperfield and I have known each other since the time he was a child," she said. "We haven't seen each other for many years." Early the next morning, I met Dora in the garden and we talked for a while. The rest of my stay passed like a dream. When I left, I had decided that I must marry Dora. I was delighted to learn that Dora loved me too. We decided to keep the engagement a secret for a while. I had to finish my training before we could marry. One evening, my aunt and Mr. Dick arrived unexpectedly. My aunt said, "Trot, I'm ruined. I've lost all my money in some bad businesses." I felt miserable. I was now too poor to help my aunt or to marry Dora. I told Mr. Spenlow about my aunt's loss and said that I had decided to give up my training and start working. A week later, I went to see Dora and told her I was too poor to marry her. Dora began to cry, but she still wanted to marry me. A few days later, an angry Mr. Spenlow called me to his room. Miss Murdstone was sitting there. She took out my letters to Dora. "I believe that is your writing, Mr. Copperfield?" Mr. Spenlow said. I told Mr. Spenlow that Dora and I were engaged. "No, you're not," Mr. Spenlow said angrily. "I desire an end to this nonsense." The next day, I learned that Mr. Spenlow had been found dead about a mile away from the house the previous night. I was shocked. After her father's death, Dora went to live with her two aunts. Around this time, I began writing for the newspapers and was earning well. Soon I had enough money to marry Dora, but our happiness lasted only a year. After suffering for long, my Dora died. One morning, I received a letter from Mr. Micawber. He was now working for Uriah Heep and wanted to expose Heep's trickery and fraud. So my aunt and I, along with Traddles, who was now a lawyer, met at Mr. Wickfield's the next day. Uriah seemed surprised to see us. Mr. Micawber then declared that he had found out that Heep had been forging important papers and changing the account books. Hearing this, Uriah rushed to the safe where the account books were kept. The safe was empty. My aunt seized Uriah by the collar and said, "I thought Mr. Wickfield had put my money into the wrong business. But now I know it was you who took my money. Pay me back." "All right, I'll pay," Uriah shouted. Some days later, Traddles called us all to a meeting. He had examined Mr. Wickfield's accounts. He said there was enough money to pay back all Mr. Wickfield's debts. He would still be left with enough to live on. My aunt would also get back her money. She decided to give some money to Mr. Micawber to go to Australia, as she had got back her money only because of him. I went to Switzerland and began writing books again. As time passed, I became rich and famous. During those years, I often thought of Agnes. I began to feel that my love for her was very deep and strong. I had to return to her. I went to Canterbury to meet Agnes. I found her in the sitting room. I said, "Agnes, dear Agnes, I went away loving you. I stayed away loving you. And now I have come home still loving you." Agnes began to cry, but her tears were tears of joy. "You have told me your secret. Now I shall tell you mine. I have loved you all my life," she said. And so Agnes and I were married, and we are very happy together. So with this, we have completed the story of David Copperfield as well. We'll be reading the next illustrated classic, that is Gulliver's Travel, in the next video. Hope you enjoyed reading both the stories with me. Leave me a comment and let me know about it. Please do like and share, and of course subscribe to my channel if you're new to it. Hit on the notification bell for my next videos, and thank you so much for dropping by. Come back to hear me again. Till then, take care and bye-bye.